Keith, so let's talk about the red heifer.
Yeah, there's been a few people who've been watching that. Back a little less than 3 years ago, there was a red heifer that was born in Israel, and the Jewish people are looking for a perfect sacrifice. The Bible tells them in the book of Numbers that they need to have a red heifer because the ashes will provide cleansing from death. If I go to a funeral and I get too close to a dead body, I have to be sprinkled with the ashes of the red heifer before I could go into the temple. You're thinking, well, what temple are you talking about? Well, the temple that they want to build. Okay, the Jewish people are anxious to build a temple. They think that when the temple is built, that will bring God's presence back to them. And they're partially correct. The Bible does tell us that God's presence will come back to a temple, but it's not the one they're getting ready to build now. It's going to be the temple that's built after Jesus returns. It's the temple of Ezekiel in the last 9 chapters of the book of Ezekiel. So they're right in the fact that God will bring his presence back, but it doesn't happen until after the great day of the Lord, which is when Jesus comes back and defeats the enemies and sets up his kingdom. So they're anxious. They want this temple. They know they're going to have some red heifer ashes in order to cleanse it and make it worthy for people to go in. I don't believe God's presence will be in that temple. Just because I build a building and I put God's name on it doesn't mean he's under obligation to come visit. And we see many scriptures that tell us that. Plus, we see that in the world today. There are many domos, cathedrals, mosques, synagogues, whatever you want to call them. All the different religions are coming and they're saying, this is a temple for God, but they're not visiting. God's not visiting. God's presence is not there. And so there's other things that have to happen. But they want the temple. They need those ashes. And unfortunately, just about a week ago, the Temple Institute came out and said that heifer, which was just ready to have its 3rd birthday, which is how long it has to be 3 years old with no blemishes, they said it was disqualified. So I don't know if they're going to force it. I don't know if the hairs will fall out miraculously when they brush it 10,000 times until the hairs fall off. I don't know what's going to happen, but I do know they're very anxious because they need those ashes. People have to be sprinkled with those ashes before they come into the holy place, and the entire temple has to be cleansed with that living water that contains the ashes of that perfect sacrifice. And the Bible tells us and gives us many clues. Jesus was that red heifer. Jesus was that perfect, unblemished sacrifice that died outside the camp for the sins of mankind. And so we're not expecting another one. God's not going to provide one miraculously. The question is whether the Hebrew people can manufacture one and get it to pass the inspection.